From one of Australia's former leading homicide detectives, this is I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
What I've learnt investigating homicides, every murder's different. And, Sarah Ewell, the forensic psychologist, would always tell me that just because this person's done a bad thing doesn't make them a bad person. And that's a simple philosophy, and it's from a very smart lady, but it's something that I've really learnt from, that we all make mistakes.
I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
We're back with more questions for Gary from the fans. Gary, here's one from Brian. Gary, is it true that you only got into podcasting because you wanted to show people that you actually do know how to legally record people speaking?
There is an irony to it, that I lost my career in policing because I was recording conversations, and now I do it for a living. I've got to say, I still maintain I wasn't capable of recording conversations on my phone without someone showing me how to. But the irony...
Now you've got a whole team to help you.
Look at... I used to record on a telephone, and now look what I've got. Cameras.
State of the art.
Yeah. I learned from my mistakes, obviously.
That was one of the questions I wrote in there. I pretended to be one of the fans, just for a bit of fun. But here's a real one from Jade. Why were you called Crazy Fuck? I heard you referred to this on the William Tyrrell podcast. Was that a nickname of yours?
Yes, it was. I see
really?
Yeah. I see it as a term of endearment. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I tried to explain to my kids. When that first became public outside the people that called me Crazy Fuck that I worked with, and I don't know why, just the irony of it, I suppose. I was so straight and normal, and but my good mate Jason, he takes great pride in initiating me Crazy Fuck. And if you get a nickname, you can't react to it, because if you react to it, and he could see that it irked me a little bit, so he stuck with it, and he'd introduce me when we'd go to a homicide, a fresh homicide. This is the boss, Crazy Fuck, and roll his eyes and give it to me for a bit of laughter. But on Underbelly, it came out in Underbelly, and I'm trying to explain to my kids why. Dad, why do they call you Crazy Fuck? And I'm going, they're just joking. But look, it's...
I think we need someone in that was involved with the actual generation of this name to see whether there's a backstory here that you're not telling us.
I think the backstory is Jason always reckons this is funny. This is the dynamics of a homicide team, and it was some of my favourite times in policing. I'd just become a sergeant. You've got to pick a team. I've got Jason, and he was a mate that I worked with on Barraville, and a funny guy, and I'd be the straight guy to his funny guy. He always reckons he's funnier than I am, and I go, I'm more situational humour than you are. But he was the loudmouth, I'm the introvert. Yeah. And then we had Nigel, who was a good mate of ours. Nigel was the technical skills we needed, because they're just bringing in all these computers, and I'm saying to Jason, we need someone that understands computers. He's gone, what about Nigel? Perfect name. So we'd rock up, and this is serious, at the first briefing at homicide, we'd rock up, and the team would be introduced. This is the boss, Crazy Fuck. He's the serious one. Jason would be saying, I'm the funny one. I do the humour. I've got the personality, and Nigel's the nerd. And that was the breakup
what a trio!
Breakup of the team. But it was a perfect. We complemented each other.
Were you happy with how you were portrayed on Underbelly?
Yeah.
Obviously, they went for an actor, Matt Nable, that's much better looking than you. Obviously, so they've done you a solid there. But
are you? What did you say?
Well, I'm just saying. Come on, Matty Nable. They've done you a solid.
Yeah,
there.
all right. All right. It's a good style of a bloke. Even my mum said she prefers Matt than me. She was watching it. Matt is a really good mate of mine. We've become close from that. We met before the Underbelly thing, and the writers put us together, and we just clicked right from the start. And good friend, really talented. He's an inspirational type of guy, and we catch up a fair bit. It's funny when I catch up with Matt, and when the Underbelly series was playing, or around that time or shortly after, we'd be out for a drink, and people would come up to him and start talking about how they love the character he portrays in Underbelly, Gary Jubelin. And I'm just sitting there as just this Mr. Anonymous, just going...
Nobody cares about you, mate.
And then when they walk away, I go, I'm the fucking real Gary Jubelin, not you. But... look, it was good, and it sort of... it had... I'm proud of what we did on the call it the underbelly investigation. It was Strikeforce Tuno, but it was a big investigation. It ran for 10 years. We busted our asses on it, and we got some really good results. I'm proud of it, and I'd like to think it inspires people. Look what you can do in the policing, and I think they represented the nuances of an investigation, the highs, the lows, the pressures that sort of come with that type of investigation.
And that case involved the murder of Terry Falconer?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that because when you're investigating the murder of someone who is a drug dealer or even versus someone who's a civilian or even the murder of a kid, does it affect how passionate you are about the investigation?
Look, when you look at the Terry's situation, he had served time in prison. He was on day release. He was abducted by people purporting to be cops dressed as detectives and in uniform, and then his body was cut up and he was hung up on a hook, and his body was cut up. His teeth were pulled out, and it was a horrendous crime. No one deserves to die like that. I know his family, and you speak to his family. Yeah, Dad had his faults, but they loved him, and so it's not hard to get motivation. And I think sometimes, people assume, well, it's just bad guys killing bad guys. What I've found in organised crime, that if you let it run too long, innocent people get caught up in it. When there's the bikie wars and stuff like that. So you can still go after it with the same passion. Yeah, I mean, you see that in the news all the time now with the Middle Eastern gangs shooting each other, and you're like, oh well, if it's just internal, who cares? But and look, another way, and this is the cop side of me looking at it too. You put us in charge of an investigation like that, you uncover other crimes, so it's a win-win situation. You're solving the murder, but you're also putting people out of action that otherwise would have kept going.
I mean, obviously, everyone's glad that I'm not a cop myself, including myself. But I would find if I was in charge of investigating the murder of a pedophile, I think I'd probably feel like I'm phoning it in versus if it was a missing child or something like that.
Yeah, I do understand that, and I suppose
there must be cops that would have that mentality.
Have that mentality, but I think you set a bad precedent if you go, okay, well, we'll put resources in there. I see it, and I'll flip it a little bit. Proper resources weren't put into the Barraville investigation because they're 3 Aboriginal kids, and the families told me people don't care. I didn't believe them, but I believe it now. At the time, then you look at the William Tyrrell matter, which obviously I'm heavily linked to, and the resources that get put in there. I think we've got to look at it from a policing point of view. All lives matters, and if you let the gangsters start shooting themselves, see how it's become more brazen. Before, the gangsters used to just disappear, like Terry. Terry was meant to disappear, and his body wasn't meant to come to the surface.
Now it's broad daylight and a car park,
and and they're making statements, and with that, it's only a matter of time before innocent people are caught up in it. So you can't have that sort of lawlessness. But I do get what you're saying, and people, when there are children involved, like children make it harder. That's heavier because it's just such a sad tragedy. Anyone losing their life, but when young child,
the loss of innocence,
loss of innocence, life before them, and that life's taken away. It's a tragic situation.
I wanted to ask you about Strikeforce Tuno.
Yeah.
Because I had to look it up. Tuno is the vegan alternative for tuna. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Who's coming up with these shit Strikeforce names?
You don't believe in vegans?
I just think there was another one you're involved in, Strikeforce Roseanne.
Yeah.
And my concern is there's too many shit Strikeforce names. What about Strikeforce Leaping Panther or like Strikeforce Roaring Lion or a Rampaging Elephant? If I'm a creme and I'm like, oh, hold on, oh no, I'm being investigated by Strikeforce Tuno, I'm like, who gives a shit?
What little fish? Yeah. I know what you're saying, but the very thing that you're saying is the reason why we had to take it away from the police. So they're random names. So it's on a computer. Then you log in, you're setting up a Strikeforce, and a name spits out. The reason why they had to take it away from that, because the Raging Panther like Strikeforce would be, you can't. There
was just too many of them.
Yeah.
It was too confusing.
Yeah, if they're after you, the magic mushroom. You can't call it Strikeforce Magic Mushroom. So cops, and I think there was one that was Operation Target, and the crook got shot and killed. Now that doesn't look good when you're in the coroner's court. How did? Well, it wasn't. You know,
It's a coincidence.
it's just a pure coincidence. So that's how the names.
Okay.
I always, because you got to type them so much too. I like the short ones. Like I like Tuno because you got to type that name so many times.
Well, so it's randomly generated, but who's created this algorithm? Because it seems like there's room for a happy middle ground where they can sound a little bit tougher.
Well, you know how you complained to the governor at the prison. Maybe you could put a letter into the police commission.
I'm trying to just do you guys a solid, because if you're there trying to rouse the troops, like, hey, guys, this is a very serious investigation, Strike Force Tuno.
Do you reckon that's why it took us 10 years to catch those guys? Because we got Strike Force Tunos after you and they've gone, ooh.
It's tough to be excited to get up in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Like,
what are you working on, babe? Well,
Strike Force Tuno. Maybe it was the tone. But yeah, okay, well, take your point. We might put that in the suggestion box.
here's a question from Lisa. If you had to choose any detective to solve a murder, who would you choose and why? I guess it doesn't say whether they have to be real or fictional.
Look, I'll pick the real ones. There's some detectives that I have utmost respect for, mentors that I had that I work with. Paul Jacob, I served an apprenticeship under him. He taught me so much, and I know like the passion and dedication that he has on when he's on an investigation. I can't emphasise how much he taught me. Pam Young, who I worked with in homicide for years, but also lived with for years, and she was. People ask who's the toughest cop in New South Wales, and I'd go Pam, because she was tough mentally in that, and she was smart, and she would be a good one to be on an investigation. Charlie Bazina, homicide detective from Victoria, a fairly high-profile bloke. He's another one that when I say I've worked with Charlie, we didn't work so much when we were in the cops because he was down in Victoria. But we've worked on, had a look at a couple of investigations since we've been out of the cops, and his attention to detail, he's passionate, and his empathy for the victims. They're the type of people I want on the investigation. And there's some great cops still in there now. What worries me that you learn. It's every day I came to homicide. I learned, and the last day I was there, I'm learning. Don't record a conversation on your telephone. Who would have thought? But you're learning all the time. You need good mentors, and they create good detectives. But they're the type of people that I want, and people that care, people that genuinely care and roll their sleeves up and get the job done. I would joke sometimes that, give me a detective that destroy their personal life, and then you got them fully committed and not worried about anything else. But having said that,
that should be on the recruitment poster, I think.
You're not a true detective until you've had a divorce. Having said that, there's some great detectives that have been able to do their work because they've been in good relationships too. So it's give and take. But yeah, we used to joke about that. You're not really a detective until you're divorced.
You're talking about these hot shots that kind of come in, but then they lose attention. They want to go on to the next thing in a short time frame. How do you, when a case is kind of dragging out, how do you maintain the focus and the passion for it?
Well, there's not a lot of people that do. That's why I look for those slow burners, the ones that do. And I get frustrated with people that are there for the good times, and the good times are the early stages, the exciting part of getting the breakthroughs and all that. And then when the excitement's gone, they want to walk away, and they're the people that I don't respect and the people I get frustrated with. And because of some of the investigations I've had, they've been very long-term. Like, I'm doing short-term ones in between, but long-term investigations, and the ones that stick with those long-term investigations, they're the ones that have got my total respect, because there's not much reward. When you're like the Falcon one, that was 10 years. Like 10 years, short-term satisfaction. You think, okay, start here. Oh, it's 10 years down the track before we get a result.
It's a slow burn.
It is a slow burn, and you've got to be committed, you've got to be focused, and you've got to believe in what you're doing.
I think there's probably another detective you did leave off that wish list, which is my mum. Ronnie Hamilton would have been a great addition.
Right.
There's another question here from Elaine. Hi, Gary. Another question from me. You mentioned a few times on one of your favourite books is Mindhunter by John Douglas.
Yeah.
Can you share any of your other favourite books?
That Mindhunter, I'll explain why I enjoyed Mindhunter.
I've seen the TV series.
Yeah, well, we had, the female lead in that show, Dr. Ann Burgess, fascinating lady, and we're having her on the podcast later. But John Douglas and the Mindhunter, and I don't think in the Mindhunter TV series it was credited with John Hunter, the different name. But this was the start of criminal profiling in the FBI, early days, and they learnt that by speaking to serial killers and finding out what made them tick. I read that book, and my mentor, that I attribute to being my mentor, Paul Jacob, I was reading the book when I was a young homicide detective. We'd go there and I'd be talking on the way to the crime scene, what would John Douglas do here? And just had some fascinating insights into the way approached homicide. In regards to other books I read, I tend to I used to read fiction, but I've sort of gone off fiction books and non-fictions. I like memoirs, that type of thing. I like to take something from a book, learn a little bit. I don't overload on crime books. Like sometimes I read them, sometimes I don't. But when you're living it day to day, it's not really the relaxation. So I like That's a little bit of escapism.
I'm finding it funny because I had a book come out in August,
Yep.
and it's in like bookstores and at the airport. Seeing my face in the true crime section, and it's all these murder stories, and it's just some stupid story about a guy who was a mushroom dealer for 15 years.
It's okay. Well, I'll confess too. I looked to see if my book is in the airport.
You got to check, Gary.
You got to check. You pick it up and look. I was standing behind someone that was flicking through my book, and then they put it back, and I felt like I wanted to object. I object. Put it back. But no, congratulations. You got the book out.
Thank you.
I'll look for it. I was probably just looking for my book, not your book.
One of these days I'll be sitting next to yours, Gary.
That'll be good.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. If anyone needs a stocking filler, The Profound Benefits of a Stint in Prison. It's funny seeing it because sometimes it's in true crime, sometimes it's in non-fiction or biography.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it could also be in the how-to section, I think.
As long as they don't put it in fiction, that would be.
A couple of my mates have been putting it in the fiction section just to piss take me, but what else have we got here? Here we go. Yeah, this is from Alicia. It's a two-parter. So Alicia's brother has been murdered, and her question is, how do I have faith that the police will find my brother's killer?
It's a question that gets asked a lot since I've left the police. The amount of calls I get from people that are concerned about is this being investigated properly and that. Sometimes I'll have a deep dive into it and make suggestions. Other times I say that the families, your responsibility for it is just hound the police. The police are there to serve the public. If you've reported a crime, what's happening with that investigation? Don't let them bullshit you and fob you off. You've got a right to know. I think the police are becoming more aware of that. In regards to that, and if she's listening, I'm sorry that you're going through that. I would make contact with the person that's running the investigation, got responsibility for the investigation, and ask for updates. And
what's the training that you guys get in terms of the messaging around that to set expectations? Because there's a huge burden on you in terms of what you say to them.
We've got, I know in New South Wales, and I'm assuming in other law enforcement areas or other states, quite often you have a victim liaison officer appointed on the strike force. So, if you're on my strike force, I might be the boss. I can't speak to the victim all the time. I might appoint you. You keep the families informed, and that's the point of contact. I can't stress enough for, hopefully if there's any police listening to this, how much it's respected by the victims if you make yourself available. Like, here's my phone number, you contact me anytime and we can talk through it. These are grieving people. You got to, if you're going to be responsible for investigating the murder of someone, put yourself out there and make yourself available to the people. But in regards to that situation, make contact and just ask for updates. I think you're not asking too much. One thing, Andrew, that I was taught, and it was Courtney Topic's parents. Courtney was shot by police, and it was a tragic situation. She was going through a mental health episode and walked out of Hungry Jack's carrying a knife, and she was shot and killed by police. I was in charge of running that investigation, the critical incident investigation, to see if it was justified. And I spoke to the family initially, and I left them my number, and then it was a couple of months later that they phoned up and they've unleashed on me. The grandfather has unleashed on me. We haven't heard from you. My granddaughter's been killed. You haven't spoken to the family. And I apologised profusely and said, look, you had my number. I didn't want to phone you. We're working on it. It's not a cover-up. We're working on it. And I thought you'd contact me. I felt so bad about it. I got in the car and drove out to their place. It was on the weekend. Drove out to their place, apologised, sat down in the kitchen with them, and they told me how upset they were. And they made the point that we don't deal with the police a lot, and, well, we never deal with the police. And this was the first interaction we've had with the police, and the police have shot and killed our daughter. And we didn't think we could actually pick the phone up and phone the detective inspector. And I was embarrassed from my misunderstanding of the situation. And it taught me a lot that, the public don't think they can trouble the police. But I'm saying you can trouble the police. They're public servants.
There's a second part of this question from Alicia, which was, how can my family grieve without having answers as to why my brother was killed?
Yeah.
I guess does that go back to having that calling the police and having that conversation as well?
It's keep in contact with the police and find out what's happening. I used the word closure once when I was talking to a family member in homicide, and they jumped on me and said, this doesn't give us closure, that you don't get closure from murder. So I've taken that word out of the narrative that if I'm speaking to will get you closure. I understand that they want answers, and it's very hard to think you can't have answers. I think they can get some solace in the fact if they know the police have done everything possible. I can't imagine how a family feels if they think, well, I can imagine because I've seen it time and time again, families that I've dealt with, where the police haven't done everything possible to find their loved one, and it infuriates them, it upsets them, it keeps that pain running. So the reality of the world is that not every murder will be solved, but if you know that the people responsible for finding out who's murdered your loved one have done everything humanly possible, it makes it that little bit easier, I think. So, and the pain that people go through with when they can't find the bodies of their loved one. And I've seen that. Colleen Walker, one of the Barraville children, we haven't found her body, and that traumatises. Almost 30 years down the track, still traumatising the family. Matthew Levison's family, for 10 years, on weekends, they go to the national park with a pick and shovel and just dig around the national park looking for the body. That's the type of pain we're talking about. So you can't. You just want to know. Yeah, you want that understanding of what happened. So if police understand the impact, I think they'll do the right job. You've got to have empathy. I think that's and all the good detectives that I know, and it's funny when I sit down and speak to people I look up to, and they talk, what's a trait of a good detective? Empathy, and it's a simple thing, but it's so important.
Sure, but I think a lot of people, you get into the police force and you sign up to do a job, but then you don't realise that all these other bits are the moving parts of it. You're almost trying to be a counsellor or a therapist on the side of actually trying to catch the killer.
Well, and I've seen people that have gone too far that way. Like I've had people that have been, what the families want. I think they want a hard ass, homicide detective that's going to go for the killer. And I've had to pull some people back that they get too emotionally involved with the family. And you want to help that family, you work as hard as you can to find the killer. That will bring comfort. So it's that fine line. But you've got to keep the lines of communication open, because there's a lot of trust that the families put in you if you're investigating a murder. But you're not there to be a social worker. You've got to be ruthless in the way that you go to solve the crime.
All this stuff you're talking about with Mindhunter and there's obviously huge growth in understanding criminal psychology. Where are there areas that are kind of the new ground in terms of policing that are the hot topics? I mean, I don't even know how. If I was still drug dealing now, it'd be so much harder because there's no ATMs. Where we?
Well,
who's paying cash for drugs anymore?
I've wondered that because I wouldn't know about the drug industry, but I've often wondered, like, how do you go score from your dealer? Do you have a card machine? Because you don't want to leave a trail.
It was getting harder 4 years ago, so I don't know now. What would you do? Yeah, you'd have to have a square reader, a POS machine, but there's too much of a paper trail. I don't know.
Yeah, but everything leaves a trail. Like it really does. I get in the car to go to the gym in the morning. My phone's telling me how far I'm away from the place I'm going to, and then yesterday I got in the car, and normally I go to a licensed premises on that particular day. It said I'm 5 minutes away from this particular place, and I'm thinking, oh God, I've got to check this phone.
There was an amazing story a couple of years ago. I think it was in like the Manly Daily. There was a woman who followed her GPS and drove like right off a wharf. I think we're trusting too much in technology.
We are. We've got to wind it back. But yeah, I think for being a crook, it's going to be hard. And with policing, we need to be one step ahead of the crooks, because quite often the crooks change their MO, and if we can get ahead of them, look at that the phone sting that generated from America. Anom.
So
yeah,
that happened. The Anom takedown happened the exact same day that I got arrested, and so when I was in prison, people thought that I was a much bigger dealer than I was, because they thought that I was part of the Anom takedown, right?
That would have given you some street cred.
It was just funny timing. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, there was this app called Anom that I think was created by the FBI, and then was like through a whole bunch of like crims and snitches and informants. It was encouraged to be used by the criminal fraternity, and so there was all these like major operators using it, and the police could see the whole thing.
Everyone thought it was encoded, but yeah, it's a scary time for criminals.
I thought like when my phone got taken, I was like, oh, it's locked. I don't think you can get in. But they got
did they tickle you to get the password from you?
They didn't. I think they could have even held it in front of my face and they could have got in, but they didn't try that. They didn't do anything like that. But they got like Cellbrite or whatever it's called. They got into some stuff, and that was embarrassing enough. They had like a text from me to my mate saying like, hey man, can you bring over the bat phone? And I had like a bit in court that was like, the bat phone was my nickname for my drug phone. But yeah, so they can definitely get some stuff
I can relate. I've had my phone Cellbrighted.
So yeah,
if you take things out of context, sometimes it looks embarrassing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, I was there thinking hopefully they can't get in, but they didn't get everything, but they get enough. Yeah, that you have a sticky situation in court. I can explain it. I said when you're saying things to your friends and family, or an off-colour joke, and then you've got to read it out in court, it would sound way worse.
Yeah. There was something in the news the other day about some gangland stuff. I'm not even sure which state, but stuff was being read out, the text messages on the phone in court, and it was someone shitbagging the crew he was working with. So that would be embarrassing.
So embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, fellas, in context, it wouldn't sound so bad.
I was just venting. I didn't really mean it. I love
phone,
you. Yeah.
You didn't get that I was being sarcastic. You can't pick that up from a text. We've got a few questions here about the podcast. So you've done you've done hundreds and hundreds of episodes now. Yeah. Which interview has surprised you the most? Is there some that have stuck out?
Well, pay tribute to you. Are you saying the best podcast?
Well, I mean, obviously I would have to be up there, surely. I mean, you've talked to people on this podcast from all walks of life.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's one of the cool things about this podcast is that, you've got a lot of guys that have found themselves on the wrong side of the law that come in here and talk about that perspective as well. I think that's very cool.
I really find it interesting sitting down, speaking to people and thinking you know people, but until you sit down, you don't get the full sense of it. And I've been very fortunate, the cross section of people. I don't. It's like saying which is your favourite child. One podcast I was nervous about doing, and a term round I had a great time, was with Grace Tame. That my perception of Grace in the media, that was a very intense person, and reading the book, I'm thinking there's so much more to Grace Tame than I didn't realise. And it came in there, and I thought you stuff up with Grace, and she's going to unleash on you.
She's got a great sense of humour as well.
Oh, she's a funny lady, and I really enjoyed that. So that was one that surprised me, because I thought it was going to be intense, and I really prepared for it. And then when we got in the room. Others, some amazing stories that I've heard, stories of survival, and different people that spend time in prison, and they come through it. And I'm talking overseas prisons. One of the guests that blew me away was Rob Langdon. He spent 7 years in Kabul prison in Afghanistan as an ex-army soldier. So you can imagine the time he had with ISIS and that in there. So many people, and I honestly can't say like a favourite one. I realise how fortunate I am every time I come in and sit down and have a chat with people. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of Aussie crims will whinge about Australian prisons, but it can get a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, like a prison in Thailand, and there was one bloke. He's a English guy, Billy Moore. I watched his movie years ago. I think it was called Prayer Before Dawn, and
I have seen that. Yeah, it's hectic.
The Muay Thai guy.
Good
and
movie.
that. I watched the movie, and I thought, I'm hosting a podcast. I could reach out to him, got him on, and hearing his story. And I watched the movie, and I always thought that'd be fascinating, and got him in and thought, well, that fits right in the genre of I catch killers. And the story when he was over in Bangkok, and the survival, how people survive those situations, and then some cops that I sit down and speak to. It makes me sad that I want to be back in the cops when they're telling a cop story. I'm going, yeah, that's cool. And I'm being taken back into that world, and people that I admire, and I think I would love to work with that person.
Are there any guys who you put away who you thought, like, under different circumstances, this guy would have been a great guy to have a beer with?
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of people, and I won't name names or get them in trouble, but when I sit down and have a chat with them, it's that sliding door moment where their lives have gone this way, I've gone that way, and then we're fortunate enough that we can come back and speak to them. Even with murderers and people, I choose my words carefully here, because the consequences of murder are horrific. But people often say, like, no murderer should get bail, or they're a risk to society. What I've learnt investigating homicides, every murder's different, and Sarah Ewell, the forensic psychologist, would always tell me that just because this person's done a bad thing doesn't make them a bad person. And that's a simple philosophy, and it's from a very smart lady, but it's something that I've really learnt from, that we all make mistakes. You make mistakes, I make mistakes. It's how you react after the mistakes. We're talking about my mate Rob Carlton, who you know through the comedy festivals. And he makes a point that you're not defined by what's happened right now. It's who you were before and what happens after. And that's a good way of looking at life too, I think. That, at some point in time, we're all going to be down and feeling bad about ourselves. But what have you done before? You got some credit points there, and what are you going to do in the future? You
must have had, a similar situation to me when all the shit hit the fan and you left the police force. Is that, there's people who you thought were your mates. There's people that you thought were going to be there when shit hits the fan that are nowhere to be seen. But I found on the flip side, there's also people that surprise you, people that come and have your back that you never expected. I 100% on that, and I was surprised. Like, I probably at that point I probably wouldn't have picked some of the reactions. I thought there was some stand-up people, and they've been shown to be just weak-gutted. Just couldn't even come in and say hello to me when I'm sitting in a room for 3 months. These are people mates that I've been working with for 20 years, and there's other people that have reached out if there's anything I can do to help, that made such a difference. So I lost a lot of friends through it, and then there's others. Like I pay tribute to I mentioned Paul Jacob. I mentioned him a lot.
Matty Moss is another bloke, and Nick Caldas, who's Deputy Commissioner, and he retired shortly before the shit hit the fan with me. And he phoned me up and said, Jubes, I'm walking into court with you. And that's him putting his, without even asking what this is all about. He just said, I'm walking into court with you. So I'm walking in with my mentor, Paul Jacob, Nick Caldas, Deputy Commissioner, and Matty Moss that I work with in homicide. And I can't say how much that meant to me.
Of course.
Because, walking in, these are people that I respect, and they're walking in to support me. And then, David Shoebridge, the Greens MP, he came and gave character evidence at my hearing, and so did Mark Tedeschi, the state's senior Crown prosecutor, came and gave evidence in support of me. And there's a lot of other people that behind the scenes have supported me.
I found, that I had that feeling of that I was let down by people that I thought would be there, but then people surprised me. And so really, we're just going through shit just is a great clarifier in terms of where you stand with people.
Well, it has freed me up to a degree, because before I'd feel obliged that you go to a send-off or whatever. I think I've been to 2 police functions in the past six years, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. If I make an effort to go to a function, it's because I really support this person and this person's supported me. So
sounds like I get invited to more police functions than you now, Gary.
I reckon there'd be more surveillance on me than on you. Yeah, we've swapped roles.
I was invited to perform stand up for Christmas last year at a Victorian police station, but they
you prick, you are getting invited to more. Yeah.
So yes, most of my paid corporate gigs so far have been government events, like mostly criminal justice system ones.
But I look at you and flipping it. See how I've just worked this round, and now I'm coming
the master
back
plan.
on you.
Here we go.
The master plan. This is all a setup. We're going to get you to confess. But the system's worked for you, hasn't it? Yep. You got caught, you got punished, and you've turned your life around.
Yeah, I think that the prison experience really wasn't the thing that changed me. It was the impact it had on my friends and family.
Yeah.
That was the difference. And so I think if I had have grown up in an environment where everyone I knew was already in prison, or I didn't have any friends and family, then I don't know if it would have been as strong a disincentive.
Okay.
Because I had a pretty good time in prison. I got treated great. And so I think that it was the thing that changed me was, that I didn't want to be so selfish as to hurt my friends and family anymore.
Yeah, well, I think, and therein might be the difference, where people that can't break the shackles or start to go in a different direction in life, you had people around you supporting you. So you can have sympathy for and empathy for the people that didn't have that support. You could understand if you went in that world and you didn't have the family and that for you.
Totally. I think another thing was just opening my eyes to how many guys that were in prison who you felt like the writing was probably on the wall since they were a kid.
Yeah.
Right? They just grew up in an environment where this was always the way that they were going to end up.
Yeah.
And for me, growing up with privilege and being well educated, I just felt like I felt like more of a cockhead for ending up there. So that was another reason.
Okay, so there's some shame that comes with that. I can't say you don't understand my childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It was so I was like, I need to go out and do something better than that.
But I think it's worked in your situation. I think that is the system working. Where it's sad is if you've gone in there with that attitude and the system was that rough to you and that tough, that you've come out worse than what you went in.
Yep.
That's and you would have seen. It's a horrible place, isn't it? I did that series Breaking Badness and spent time in that maximum security prison and spent a couple of weeks there, and it's Groundhog Day, isn't it? Every day, and you can see how it breaks people mentally. Groundhog
Day, and then you have guys. I'd be in the yard with guys saying that when they got out, they're going to change their life. They were never going to come back, and then a couple of years later, they're back in. Yeah. Because. For a lot of guys, they get out and then they forget what it was like in there. Yeah.
It's a tough world. I think we can do the prisons better.
It's pretty cool when I do my stand-up shows now. I'll have a lot of people involved with the criminal justice system on both sides coming. So I'll have a lot of lawyers, but also cops, prison officers, but also crims, either like past or current
Yeah.
crims. You know, sometimes I'll have like 20 bikies come to my show to support me, which is like lovely.
Yeah.
But I do get messages from people sometimes to say that they did some prison time and they've like moved on with their life, but it's their secret shame. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so they think it's really cool that I kind of own the fuck out of it and do and make jokes about it, because I'm weaponizing it. I'm empowering myself with it, but also I think hopefully I'm trying to destigmatize it a little bit to be like, you can have that happen, but you're allowed to move on with your life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good thing, and a skill that you have is to be able to laugh at yourself. And like, I could have really bottled up when I was publicly shamed and different things, but I can have a laugh about it. One of my great decisions was when I got sentenced or before I got sentenced. They wanted to do an article in the paper, and I said, "Yeah, I'm happy to do it." And I've said, interviewed, and I'd prefer to go to jail than pay a fine. And then they got a photo of me standing on Coogee Beach with my arms crossed, staring, and it was on the front page of the paper on the weekend. And I've gone, oh, that's not good. And Margaret,
and they just shortened the quote. It just says, "I would rather go to jail," and it's like the front page of the paper.
I think it was Margaret Caneen texted me and gone, I've represented easier clients. She was my barrister or whatever. But having said that, I was comfortable with that, and what I meant by that, and I was true to my word, and some people might say I'm stupid, and I am stupid, I know I'm stupid, but it was a matter of principle. For fuck's sake, I was doing police work. If you're going to fine me, send me to jail if I'm that bad. And it was, I can imagine how that's received in the legal fraternity. But I feel good about that. I was not going to take a knee for what I did, and I could have had an easier path out of there. I could have just gone, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've been stressed, I'm working on this," all that. No, I dug my heels in, and people might say to my detriment, but I can live with myself.
Yep.
If I took the knee and apologised, I don't think I'd look myself in the mirror and be happy with what I'm seeing.
The media do, like, they'll sensationalise anything you say.
I know.
I got stitched up recently. I was in some expose about cocaine, and I was just making the point that with the lockout laws, a lot of people have gone to just having house parties, and people was saving the money that they would spend on alcohol and buying drugs, right? And so then the article had in like a big quote from me and a big photo from me in the Daily Telegraph saying, "Cheaper to do coke than beer," and it made me sound like the worst financial advisor in the world.
Again, if things are taken out of context, but you got to choose your words carefully, haven't you? I find when I do TV work that you might be recorded for an hour or so, and knowing that they're only going to be using 60 seconds or 2-minute grab from 60 minutes of footage. So you've got to be careful, and you do learn dealing with the media.
Eventually, you do. After you get stung a few times.
A couple of highs and lows.
Let's talk about your personal life.
Talking about highs and lows.
So, what kind of weird stuff are you into? Yoga, meditation?
That's not weird
saunas?
stuff. Saunas, yoga, meditation, boxing.
What else are you having? Kale juices. You don't drink coffee. You're drinking herbal teas.
No, I like smoothies. But this is the way I approach fitness and a healthy lifestyle. I think there's got to be balance. So, starts off with I'll do yoga and meditation, but I also like to box. So I like to get hit. I like to hit things, but I like to sit there and chant. So it's about balance. People think I'm obsessed with my fitness. I train so I can live the life the way I want to live it, if that makes sense. And I drink, like it's not I'm not, oh no, I'm pure, I'm not going to drink. I don't go down that path. I just want to have moderation in the way that I approach my lifestyle. Some people think
But you
I'm
were never
weird.
the cliche of the grizzled detective waking up hungover. You're getting up early to do downward dog with the sun rising.
I a couple of funny times, like because we're travelling so much in homicide, and you're always travelling. It was one country town, I forget where it was. I'm down by the river, and I'm doing Qigong, which is like a slow-moving Tai Chi type thing.
I've seen Chinese ladies doing this in the park.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm down there, and you've got to love country Australia. One bloke just walks up to me, so I'm just in the middle of the movement, just centering everything. What are you doing, mate? It looks weird shit. What are you doing? Like this country thing. And another time with Jason, we've gone out west of Dubbo. Once you go west of Dubbo, it's really getting into that, the outback type area. And we're driving along. And I said, can you stop the car for a moment? And he said, yeah. And I get out of the car. I'm just standing in this paddock, or it was just a dry sort of area, just standing, taking in the silence. And I was really enjoying it. It was just, we had a chaotic time. What the fuck are you doing? Then he put on the police siren and wrecked the Serenity. But look, it's helped me. It's helped me.
I read an article which said that 581 crimes go unsolved in New South Wales every month due to police officers wasting time on breathwork and meditation when they should be solving a crime.
Okay, how will I respond to that? Bullshit. No, there's a lot. I'd say there's more than, I'm looking at the figures. Probably more crimes doing that. They're probably playing on their phone. It balances. It balances. I got through homicide as long as I did, and I didn't take time off when I was at work. I turned up every day, because when I was knowing I'm spinning out of control, that was my release. Sometimes I had to sit there and meditate. Other times I'd had to walk in the gym and get the shit punched out of me to just take my mind off what I'm doing. But it worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone. But what I find really interesting, when I first started doing it, people thought I was weird. It was almost like, you don't trust a bloke that doesn't drink. You don't trust a bloke. He does Qigong.
It's like my mum always said, you never trust a skinny chef. You know?
Yeah, well,
that'd probably be the same with the coppers.
The same thing. But I think people are more accepting of it now. And when I used to go to a yoga retreat or whatever, people would be sitting there and you're talking and what do you do? I'm a policeman, and everyone just look at what the hell. But now it's a norm. Yeah. So I was ahead of my time.
Here's another question from Brian. Gary, is it true that you had a full head of hair when you started with the cops, but a strand fell out every time you pissed off one of your former wives or girlfriends?
That's a loaded question. I didn't have that many wives and girlfriends. When you look back, it's over a long period of time.
Yeah.
When my hair started falling out, you get to that point, do you do the shave or not do the shave? And when I've decided to do the shave, we're away with a group of friends, a surfing trip or whatever, and one of my mates, the wives or girlfriend, said, I've got some clippers in there, why don't we shave? And it was enlightening. All of a sudden, you're not worried about being bald. Here, you're bald. What are you going to do about it?
It's quite free.
Yeah, it is free. It's a little bit confronting at first, but once you do it, life goes on. Like when you're losing your hair, there's nothing worse. And I see blokes going through it, and I know they're going through it. And I'm thinking, you poor bastard, you'll be thinking, life's not worth living if I've got no hair. Shave it off, and you go, oh, well, here I am.
You've got a head that suits a bald head, though.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, because you don't know until you shave, because you don't know what sort of shape you've got.
True.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see a photo of Gary with hair now.
It was long curly hair, and
long curly hair.
I miss it. The thing I miss is having haircuts, because I like to go. You could sit and have a haircut. You know, when you just got a shitty day, stuff it. I'll go get a haircut. Well, you can't really do that. I haven't got many options.
But you had hair when you first started the coppers.
Yeah. Had hair. In regards to the girlfriends and wives, yes, I've had a few.
Yeah. Well, you said before, you're not a good detective unless you've gone through a couple of divorces.
Yeah, and some of the best cases were solved when I was just a lonely guy at home with nothing to do. Look, I've had some great relationships, and everyone I've been with, I've got something from the relationship. Why they break down, people always want me to say, well, it's the pressure of work. Sometimes it's the pressure of work. Sometimes you just grow apart because work is demanding, and you give yourself to that. But I don't know if I've learnt.
Well, I mean, that was my next question. Is now you're what, six years out of this, 5 years out of the force?
Yeah.
Do you think that has changed your ability to maintain a relationship because you not have this drive to solve a murder everybody couple of days.
Yeah, it definitely makes me a better catch in that
You're more available?
more available, because before I would be hard pressed not to turn the phone off. I can now get to the point where I
it's not just like a time thing, but also I imagine an emotional availability thing. If I'm mentally bogged down in someone's murder, it'd be hard to kind of unplug from that and go out for date night, I imagine.
Well, 100%. And sometimes you get home and, where do you want to have dinner? Well, I don't care. Like, just that type of thing. In my work life was very challenging. I tend to, the relationships I've been in, they've been challenging and rewarding. So it's sort of the highs and the lows. I like the passionate relationships, which can end very badly sometimes, let me tell you.
I know. My ex-fiancée dobbed me into the cops and I got sent to prison. So we've all been there, Gary.
All right, we've got no point to whinge. What I have learned, and this is, at last, it hit him over the head enough times and he starts to learn. The shit that went down in the cops made me realise the importance of the people that I needed to rely upon, the people close to me, the people that supported me, family, friends, and all that. And relationships, no matter what, if you're in a good relationship, life's pretty good. And I understand the importance of it. That's what I want from life. I want a good relationship, because no matter how much success you have or rewards you're getting from work, if you come home and there's no one there, it's a pretty lonely place. And I've spent a lot of time on my own, and sometimes you're on a high from work, you've come home, and you become like that cliche of the homicide bloke eating a pizza and a cold beer sort of thing. Well,
I mean, that leads us on to our next question, Gary. Quite a few women have written in to ask if you are single. What's the relationship status of Gary Jubelin?
It's classified. It's classified at this stage. I'm in a good place at the moment, and I'm going to tiptoe around this question. I've had my highs and lows since I've left the cops. Read into that what you want, but I'm finding a pathway through. Is it very mysterious? So I'm not really giving them that.
Like a politician.
I'm finding the pathway. Is there any phone numbers there?
We'll have to check the Instagram.
No, look, I'm. Yeah, you can make so many mistakes in life, and then you got to wake up to yourself. I'm hoping that I'll get it right in the future.
Well, I mean, some chicks would have just been into you when you were a cop because it's like it's a fantasy thing, but you're not that anymore. So you're just a podcaster.
I used to. If it's sad if I'm walking around going, I used to be a cop. I used to be a cop.
Here's a photo of me in the uniform.
So I was a cop. Yeah, you're right. It's hard to sell.
I'm trying to picture you've still got a photo of you in your uniform as you're on your Tinder bio.
I've never gone down that path.
No dating apps?
No, look what my phone got me into. It got me charged. I'm not touching that thing. That would end in disaster.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I steer clear of that. But no, you've made a good point. What do you do? I do a podcast. Well, so does everyone else. Okay, I've got to work on the line, make it more interesting.
I mean, chicks seek every dude, every white dude has a podcast, right?
Yeah. Well, everyone's got a podcast. Okay, got to come up with something else.
A lot of people actually listen to it, actually. So
you can. Have you played the line that now that you've written the book, you're an author? That's has to be it.
I still haven't tried that one. It still seems very surreal that I wrote a book. So it's only been a few months, but I'll
okay. We'll get into
point.
that because just you got to tailor it to the an author, a writer.
Even stand-up comedian doesn't sound that impressive.
Like, no, that's a pretty.
I'm in the performing arts. What do I don't know.
But isn't that what they say? Like what do women look for? It's not the looks; it's a man that can make them laugh. So surely you can pitch that.
Yeah, but I think that they want that like at home. They want a guy who's making a feel laugh. I don't know. They want you on stage doing it for everyone else.
Oh, it's just embarrassing.
You were talking about Pam before and your relationship with Pam. Yeah. I saw you'd had her on this podcast previously, and she had mentioned that you were a generous lover. Good on you, Gary.
I wasn't sure where that answer. I wanted that.
But she also said that you were prone to answering a phone in the throes of passion. Gary.
Andrew.
Can't you call them back in 2 minutes?
Well. 2 minutes.
Let only go to voicemail. It won't be long.
I'm
You
not
call
going to
them
say
back.
how long it'll take before I call them back. That's but good line of questioning. You almost tricked me into that. No, it wouldn't have been 2 minutes. It would have been 10 minutes. Good questioning.
But you used to do that.
Yeah, I did, and I'm not proud of it.
Come on, mate.
I'm not proud of it, but Pam was a homicide detective too, so she would understand. But yeah, whatever rocks your boat, I suppose.
Even the most dedicated of cops is allowed to have a few minutes to themselves, surely.
That was I was a lunatic in the phone me anytime, I'll answer. Yeah, okay. I'm embarrassed by that.
Well, you know,
but and I did publicly apologise to Pam and anyone else I've insulted for
well,
that.
I was probably a good thing that you're not on Tinder, because it would be like just photos of you and it'd say generous lover as long as the phone doesn't ring.
Well, yeah, you talk about the media, and my kids sent me this, and they're gone, Dad, like as an embarrassment. Top cops, weird bedroom antics, or whatever the headline was.
Just when they thought it couldn't get any worse.
Can you shut up, Dad? Stop it. But yeah, that wasn't a proud moment for my kids.
So, I guess, now you're in a position where you're not in the cops, so you don't have that. So, I guess, there must be people, whatever relationships you get into now, it's a different version of you.
It is a different version, but a more relaxed version. I'd like to think that I can control my life now. Now, that's something that I didn't realise when I was in the cops. That now, when I'm basically working for myself, I can choose when I work. If someone wants me to do a talk, I don't have to ask for permission. And so I feel like I've got control of my life. If I want a holiday, I can plan for it. In the cops, you couldn't plan for those type of things. So I think am I doing a sales pitch? I cook a beautiful meal. I'm a better person than I was when I was in the cops. I still like the person I was in the cops. I was dedicated and all that, but I've got more freedom now, and I think people that know me see me as more relaxed now than the intensity that you had to carry as a homicide detective.
Do you, looking back at your career and I guess the way you left the force, do you have regrets around it?
My regret, and this, and I've said this before, and when I say it, I don't want people to misinterpret it. But if I knew that my career was going to end the way it did, I went hard on the William Tyrrell investigation. Yeah. If I knew it was just going to be ripped away, I would have gone even harder. And I'm not making any apologies for the way I led the investigation. And my regrets are, I promise as we've talked about, I promise the biological family and the foster family that I would do everything humanly possible to find out what's happened to William. And that opportunity was taken away from me, and I feel like I've let them down. And there were other investigations that I was on too that have been pulled off and haven't done any handover and all that. And that hurts me. That's if I've got regrets, they're the regrets I've got that I didn't finish what I set out to start. Having said that, I will help these people in any way I can outside the cops. That commitment didn't end the moment I walked out the door. I didn't go, oh, well, it's nothing to do with me. Yeah. I spend that much time on the phone speaking to people that have got problems with investigations and that. I haven't got the contacts in the police, which is sad because I could filter them through if I had the contacts in police and say, hey, look, I've been speaking to this person. I think there could be something in it. I would love to have that relationship with the police, but there's no one I can pick up a phone and speak to in the police. So I'm dealing with traumatised people now, even though I'm outside the cops, and trying to help them and point them in a direction. And I'd like to help every one of them, but it's got to the point where I can't keep up with it all.
Yeah, well, that doesn't sound like it sounds like a very annoying roadblock for the wheels of justice if, like, you've got this information, you just want to pass it on.
Yeah, surely the whole thing is about getting justice. I just want to do the podcast. I don't want to do this stuff, but these people are genuine and they're reaching out to me, so I help them where I can.
It must be hard to have that kind of relationship with the police force when you've given so much to it for so long.
Yeah, but
How do you?
it's a mind fuck if you overthink it. So
Yeah.
I just laugh about it and think I've got good memories. I know the people that respect me and the people that I respect, and I don't let it bog me down, because if it's occasionally I start to overthink it, and someone will raise something, I'll go, but this, that, and it's going to destroy me. It will destroy me with just frustration and the unfairness of it all. But it's not that way. And I look at it, and I think it helps when I see what some other people have gone through, especially the victims of homicide. What am I whinging about?
Yeah.
Like William Tyrrell's foster parents and biological parents. Look at the shit they're caught up in, and I've got nothing to complain about. They've lost their child. So yeah.
No, but the shit you've gone through is still valid, right?
Yeah, it is, and I'm not diminishing it, and I'm not saying I'm impervious to feeling the pain. But when it's all said and done, I'm happy with the career I had in the police. I'm proud of the career I had in the police, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing now. So I look at it that way.
So, what do you want to do now with the rest of your life?
I don't know.
What's on the horizon? You got any things that you're working on or you want to do?
A couple of things that have been. I've loved the podcast world. Like I've really enjoyed that, and just learning the trade, working in the media. I've enjoyed writing the books, and a shout out to Dan Box, who I co-wrote the books, the two books that #1 bestsellers, I should say.
I wrote mine on my own without any help, so
Dan wasn't
whatever.
Dan wasn't much help, but I'm lying, Dan. I'm lying. But I enjoyed that, and I have got a thought in my head for a third book. I Catch Killers was a memoir. That was my life. Badness was understanding badness. I don't know. I've got to be in the right mindset to go down that path and write that book. But I'm getting close to it. I've got a sort of structure for it, so I'm looking at that. A couple of other pitches to me about TV series and different things that are in the works, and sometimes I do consultancy. I like hanging out with creative types.
What's the kind of consultancy stuff? It's like it's a police procedural, and they ask for your own perspective.
It could be a fictional TV series, and they send me the script, and I go through the script and go, look, that's not really what we do. So give it a little bit of realism to it, which is enjoyable. And one thing I do...
Call one of the characters Crazy Fuck. Here we go. Make it believable.
But yeah, that sort of stuff. One of the things that really challenging but so rewarding was touring the country with Rob Carlton on the I Catch Killers show, and I was like a sponge hanging out with Rob, because he's been in that industry for so long, and he taught me so much about presence on the stage and timing and different things, and doing one show after another and travelling around the country with him.
I know you did a show at the Factory Theatre. Where else did you guys do shows?
We did Enmore Theatre too, and Entertainment Centre down in Victoria, and Brisbane, all over the place. So it was good. We did a capital city tour and then a regional tour. But I enjoyed the experience of doing live shows, but there's a lot of effort that you've got to put into it, and a lot of energy. I didn't appreciate how much energy and effort you've got to put into it.
Before you get on stage, right? Just the nervous energy.
I've told this story, but our first show was at Enmore Theatre, sold out on a Saturday night, and we had 2 weeks to prepare for the show, and I thought it was going to be a Q&A, me sitting there and asking me questions, and I got this. And Rob's gone, no, this is the theatre, stupid. We're taking the audience on a journey. So I had about 30 minutes of monologue to learn, timings, all sorts of things. I was shitting myself before the show. And even my manager, Nick Fordham, he's gone, because I'm going, Enmore Theatre, Saturday night, like Enmore Theatre, I go see bands there. This is, is iconic. And this is my patch. I don't want to embarrass myself in this area. And Nick's there, and he had a nervous look on his face. And we've done the show, and it went over really well. And Nick's gone, oh, Jesus, I was a bit worried about it. I didn't know whether that had come off. I've gone, you promised me it would come off. But
He's not going to tell you that beforehand, right?
No, that would have sent me over the edge. Gary's not coming out of the dressing room. But good stuff. And, it gave me a confidence, and because I still do a lot of TV stuff and all that. And the pressure of a live audience, you guys, and I say it to you guys, that would terrify me, walking out on stage on your own. And I can walk out and tell stories and entertain, but to go out there and I'm going to make you laugh, how do you prepare before you go
Well, I
out?
think in the same way that you're talking about being addicted to the job, you know,
Yeah.
I'm addicted to comedy. I love it.
Yeah.
There are times when I absolutely shit myself.
Yeah.
You know, I'll have a quick beer and
Yeah.
then I'll just go out on stage and I just trust in my material.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Trust in my jokes, and then, you know, once the people start laughing, you relax right into it.
Yeah, but that you've got to hit it right, haven't you? And sometimes I've been in the dressing room with big shows, and I'm just there going, why the fuck have I put myself in this position?
Yeah. Can we cancel it?
Yeah. Can't I break my leg? If I break
think
my
I'm
leg,
sick.
yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
It's a normal part of the process.
Yeah.
And I think that the difference between people like, oh, I don't know how you do that. We have those same feelings. You just force yourself to do it because I know that's what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah,
all my time.
and that I really respect that you're doing, finding your passion. When you say what I want to do in life, I want to do something that I'm passionate about, and I did that in the policing, and I'm doing it now, and it makes life a lot easier. Like it really does. I don't recall whinging that I've got to get up to bed to get out of bed to go to work. I was excited about going to work. Sometimes I probably didn't feel like getting out, but I was always excited.
How did this podcast come about? You'd been out of the police force for how long, and then did you approach someone, or did they approach you about doing it?
No, I got when it all happened, I got inundated with, we've got a TV series, we're doing this or doing that, all these proposals put to me, and I'm sort of overwhelmed. And I'm just sitting there stunned, going, what am I going to do? And like 60 Minutes approached me to get a contract with 60 Minutes, and then News Corp. And I'm speaking to Rob, going, what the hell, this is a world that you understand better than I. And he said, you got to get an agent. And I've gone, got to get an agent? That sounds like, what a wanker. Like, yeah,
It does sound awful when you say it out loud, doesn't it?
I've just come from the cops and I've got to get an agent. And he referred me to Nick Fordham. So I sat down and spoke with Nick, and he's gone, okay, well, there's a book. We'll get you a contract with 60 Minutes, with News Corp, the podcast. And I'm just going, okay, this is, you think?
What a roller coaster.
Yeah. And then Nick made the comment, and it's pretty funny, on the day I was in, I think it was the second time I'd gone into his office to talk about planning my future career. He's got taken a call, and it was from Margaret Caneen, the barrister, that said the police have got you circulated as wanted if you don't give yourself up. And Nick's gone, that's the first time I've had a client in here about to be arrested.
How good.
Yeah, so that was, and he's gone, it's all good, it's publicity, don't worry about it. So the podcast with News Corp, and also write some articles. That was terrifying for me, because I'm writing an article, and it's on the front page of the paper, and Claire Harvey, who was my mentor at News Corp when I first started, said, could you write an article about this? And it was something relevant to William Tyrrell or shit that was going down. So I did, and I took about 2 days to write this article. I was so nervous. It's like sending off a uni assignment that the whole world's going to read.
Is it going to be any good?
Is it going to
Are
be?
they going to say it's shit? How'd it go?
A true story. I've emailed it to her, and I get a text back, and she's gone, got the article, and I've gone, oh, that sounds really positive. And I've caught the train into Holt Street, and walked up there, and Claire's in her office, and she's got coffee spilt on a desk. And I'm sort of sidling in there just to try and get some feedback. And she's gone, you can actually write. I spilt my coffee, I was reading it, and you can actually write. I've gone, oh, thank Christ.
She could have added a couple extra words in the text message.
Yeah,
just got the
I
article.
know, but it was, I learnt a lot, and people like Claire and Dan and other people have helped me to write and understand that you've got to be descriptive, because I was very factual in policing. Arrived at the premises. Now, it was a cold, windy night when I arrived at the premises, that type of thing. So you've got to be descriptive in the way that you describe things. So that's been good, and it's made me. I'm proud of the articles that I've written, and some have been very meaningful to me about issues that I'm writing about. And then the podcasts, they said get your mate Jason, and we'll go to a pub and we'll record a podcast. And that's basically, we started recording at pubs, did the first season, and could not stand drinking from 8 o'clock in the morning because we'd have a couple of beers to create the atmosphere, fly on the wall stuff. But I was interviewing old cops or cops I've worked with, and after we've finished the podcast 2 hours and had, I don't know, 3 beers, we'd get too loose if we went past that. Let's have some lunch. And so by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm plastered, and I'm thinking, I can't do this, and that's how we move
back to being a rookie cop going out for Chinese again.
Yeah,
you know?
and so that's where we've moved into the studio, and just enjoyed it, and enjoyed the journey of it. So,
well, yeah, I can't imagine that you thought when you started that it was going to go as long as it has.
No, well, that's I really thought, oh well, this is lucky. I've just got some opportunities, and but I put the effort in because I'm a big believer in paying your dues, and I think I came into the media world on a level that I didn't deserve, as in because of what I'd done. I'm sort of pitched there. If I write an article, it can be on the front page of the paper. Better journalists, and I could take a long time to get an article on the front page of the paper.
But I think that's like a very common kind of imposter syndrome, right? That you think that, but the reality is you that's happening because you have a level of insight that few people have.
Well, yes, when I'm talking about stuff that I know, but that you mentioned imposter syndrome, and I have that every single day. Every time I walk into this studio, I've got imposter syndrome, thinking, what the hell am I doing this?
Yeah, there's a great comedian that I won't name that I told him the same thing, that I have imposter syndrome. And he's like, mate, the day that you don't feel it, there's the day you lose it. You know?
100%.
Well, I think we've gone through a fair few of the audience questions. I think the only one left really is this Christmas time. What's the shittest Christmas present that you've ever received?
Oh, no Christmas present. That's pretty lonely. But
that's bad.
That is bad. The grandmother that keeps buying you underpants even when you're in your 30s or whatever, that type of thing. But they're sweet presents. No,
undies is pretty bad. I used to get undies and a pack of Uno cards, I think, for my 7th birthday, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah. No, wind it right back. My father wouldn't let me have a push bike till I was about 13, and by the time I've got the push bike, everyone's outgrown the push bikes, and I come out like the kids. You're meant to get the push bikes at 6 or 7, where you got your new shiny bike. I'm 13, and my mate's going, "What, your push bike? Aren't you too old for that type situation?" So that
look like a loser. What?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he let you have a push bike?
I don't know. I probably did something stupid. Yeah,
he had his own rules.
Yeah, he had his own rules. But no, Christmas. I'm not. I get called Scrooge a lot on Christmas, but I try to embrace the Christmas spirit. And
Wait, you're the Scrooge? What you?
Oh no, I give presents, but have I got a Christmas tree up in my place yet? No, I haven't.
Come on, mate.
Well, my kids begged me when I'd separated from my first wife, and the kids are 6 or 7, that age where Christmas is important to them. I'm a shit dad. I'm a shit husband. The relationship's fallen apart. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to buy them the biggest Christmas tree you can get in the crappy little place I was renting at the time. So I bought one of those real pine tree ones. Mm-hmm. Didn't have any tools there because they were at my ex-wife's house. Had a knife and it wouldn't fit in the
it's a disaster already.
Place.
Yeah.
So I've got this bread knife, with a serrated edge, trying to cut this tree down. I was there for about 2 or 3 hours. We're living near the beach. The kids just walked off disappointed and went down to the beach, and I'm there with this Christmas tree trying to cut it down. Never have bought the live Christmas tree since then. Well, traumatised by it.
You gave it one go.
I gave it my best shot. It was you try cutting down a Christmas tree or trimming up a Christmas tree with a butter knife.
Luckily, I've had mum or girlfriends that have done the heavy lifting for me. I haven't had to do it myself yet.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. But no, I'm looking forward to Christmas. I get to this point, at the end of the year with the podcast, I really feel like I'm about to fall over the line. Yeah, I aim for the year, and it's nice to get across the line. Delivered what we wanted to deliver. Proud of the people we've had on the podcast. Had a lot of fun. Learnt a lot, and yeah.
Now you can put your feet up for a little bit and know that you're not going to get a call about having to go to a crime scene.
And let's face, I haven't been charged this year, which is
That's
always a good thing.
Neither have I, Gary.
Well, there you go.
My ICO, I was on a 2.5 year intensive corrections order, and that finishes December 23. And so that, as part of that, it had in writing that I wasn't allowed to commit any more offences for 2.5 years. So my understanding, I haven't checked it, but my understanding is I'm allowed to go back to drug dealing from December 24th.
I can give you free legal advice. That's exactly what it meant. So you just run with that. And when you get locked up, just say Gary Jubelin said it's all right.
He said it was sweet. You're
that'll
tight with all the coppers, aren't you?
That'll carry a lot of weight. But look, I gotta thank you for coming in and doing this. I think it's as one of the guests we had on, when Emily suggested this, your name came up, and I've gone, let's do it.